Now, one of the things that the government has done, apparently, has been to put together a group called the Janjaweed.
Yes.
And that was referenced, you referenced that just a moment. Now, the Janjaweed, could you go into a little more detail on that?
You
Who are
bet.
the Janjaweed? How did they get started? And even more importantly, what are they doing?
You made reference earlier to some of the encroachment of the Sahara. Well, the northern nomadic tribes are the ones who make up the Janjaweed. They are losing their own areas where they normally, where they traverse the landscape. They look at parts of Darfur as being their rightful land. They want that land. So they were easy prey when the Khartoum government approached them and suggested that they could be paid and armed if they were to make life difficult, and even more than that, for the Darfuris, drive them from their land. And they come down, they are armed. They are called Janjaweed, that means devil riders, basically. There are a couple of translations, but that's the simplest one. And they actually do ride. They ride on camels, they ride on horses, and of course they ride on Land Rovers and other things as well. They're armed to the teeth. And they come down, after the government itself has bombed and strafed these small villages, the Janjaweed come and kill or dismiss the people in detail, one at a time. It is the worst sound that any of these helpless people can hear is hoofbeats after they have already lived through the bombings and the strafings.
Mm-hmm. And to deal with the Janjaweed, what has been done up to this point?
The first thing, nothing really has been done on an international scale yet. There has been some help. The African Union went in about 7,000 strong, now about 9,000. They sent troops in, but unfortunately they did not pay them. They did not equip them. Even with those problems, however, the African Union was able to help guard those in the camps and those who remain in some of these small villages. There were about 6.5 to 7 million Darfuris to start with. 2.5 million of them were in either internally displaced camps or refugee camps in Chad. We don't know how many are dead. You can throw any number out there you want, but the closest we can come to it is somewhere around 250,000 dead, but that changes every day. Of course, the rebellion began. The problem was the Darfuris, the poorest of the poor in all of Sudan, they wanted a piece of the action. Just like the South Sudanese had won some representation in Khartoum and some piece of the oil revenue, the Darfuris wanted the same thing. That started as many as 4, some say 5, significant rebel groups, all very small, who started an incursion against the Khartoum government. Al-Fashir, for instance, they attacked where the aircraft were, and they went in and chewed up a few of the aircraft and killed a few of the Sudanese soldiers who were there. That was, of course, all that the Khartoum government needed to put the clamp down on the Darfuris, not necessarily the rebels, the Darfuri people.
Mm-hmm. That is a tragedy. It's certainly a tragedy. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, and today we're talking about Darfur. Darfur is one of the thorniest issues being dealt with at the United Nations and with many other groups around the world. My guest today who's discussing this is Nick Clooney. Mr. Clooney is a well-known newsman from the Cincinnati area, but he's also been an anchorman in Los Angeles. He has written extensively for various newspapers, and he and his son George, not too long ago, over the last couple of years, shall we say, went to Darfur and produced a wonderful documentary on a journey to Darfur, and that's what we're talking about today. You mentioned a moment ago, Nick, about how Darfur sort of fell off the radar screen, didn't get a lot of publicity. It's almost like the CNN effect. When somebody with high media recognition, such as George and you also go to Darfur, the media go. They're very interested, and they're going to take note of what you say. Now, recently, we've seen where George has been named as a messenger of peace for the United Nations. Here is another very elevated position, and one that focuses a spotlight on him and his message. Tell us a little bit about what is the messenger of peace, and how did George get selected for this very, very really prestigious group. It's a very small number of personalities who represent the UN and talk about some of these major issues.
Yes, that's right. Obviously, the reason that George came to their attention was simply because of his deep interest in and his obvious commitment to the people, the helpless people in Darfur, and efforts to help them. He has done this internationally along with many friends of his, including actor Don Cheadle and several others who have been working very hard in this direction. George's consistent position on this, and if I may toot his horn as his father, his eloquence in dealing with this. He does not come out as a firebrand. He understands that if there is going to be a settlement in Darfur and in the entire Sudan region, everybody has to win something. You cannot simply point the finger at one group or another and call them the villains. Somehow or another, we're going to have to reach rapprochement among all of them so these people can go home and live out their lives in peace. That's what we're shooting for, and that's what George is working for very hard. Now, he, in recognition certainly of what he has been attempting to do, he was asked by the United Nations Secretary General to take on this new task, and he thought about it because he understood. For those who don't know George, when he decides to do one of these things, it will take over his life. It will be a very large part of what he does from now on. He accepted the challenge, and you were there, Bill, and saw that when he did, he made no namby-pamby speech. His speech to the UN and to the others was, if we're not going to get the 26,000 troops in there to help the Darfuris and to protect the humanitarian organizations, if we're not going to get those 26 armed men into that area, then take out the ones you have now. As he suggested, take them out and then turn off your radio and turn off your television and stuff cotton in your ears so you won't hear the screams and the cries of those you have abandoned. Because right now, with this halfway effort, is dooming them to more blood and tears.
That's very true. And most world leaders have paid lip service to supporting a United Nations mission in Darfur. Finally, it's being put together. There are about 9,000 troops that are moving into the area. They want 26,000, but the mission was almost derailed because no country would put up 24 helicopters, which is absolutely incredulous that they would not put them up. And they're paying lip service, but now hopefully they're going to get on board, write some checks, underwrite this operation, and donate troops, because the UN has no money, the UN has no troops, and it depends upon its member states to be successful. And that is what it's going to take. And of course, George and you and other folks are focusing the limelight on this very, very troubled area of the world. He could almost, I think, serve as to sort of issuing a challenge to other celebrities to get involved in these issues. Now, there are many that are involved as goodwill ambassadors for the United Nations Children's Fund, the UN, the UN High Commission for Refugees, and different ones like that. But it seems like there are a lot of celebrities out there who could lend their name and get involved in this. Do you think that they might in the future?
Well, my take on it is that this is a lot more satisfying than almost any of the other things that we see high-profile celebrities being seen on television when you watch the evening news. I think that anybody would rather be known for working for humanitarian causes than for what they wear or what nightclub they go to at night. And I'm certain that many of them, I salute all those going all the way back to Danny Kaye and Audrey Hepburn and all those great humanitarian celebrities who have done much to help raise the profile of what the UN has been able to do. And I salute my son, and also Matt Damon and Don Cheadle and Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and the others who are working very hard and giving much of their time and their treasure to efforts to help people.